Amables oyentes, con esto cerramos esta emisión de nuestros programas. Muchas gracias por habernos acompañado. Hasta la próxima ocasión.
Discover modern day China by feeling the pulse of its economic, cultural, and social evolutions. Guest in Beijing 10 and Discover Plus Radio, a division of China Radio International.
CRI News, I'm Ding Lulu. China says it has the confidence and capability to crack down on terrorists after the latest terrorist attack in Xinjiang killed 41 people and injured over 90 others. Two vehicles without license plates rammed shoppers at an open market in Xinjiang's capital, Urumqi, and set off explosives. Foreign Ministry spokesman Hong Lei says medical resources are being mobilized to take care of the injured, many of whom were elderly people who frequent the morning market. President Xi Jinping has pledged to severely punish terrorists and spare no efforts in maintaining stability. The international community, including Russia, the United States, France, and the United Nations, have issued condemnation to the attack. In another development, two flights from Shanghai to Urumqi have been forced to land in Nanjing and Lanzhou, respectively, for security checks. One flight was diverted to Nanjing after police received a tip that a passenger had explosives on board. The flight was delayed for 3 hours before it was allowed to continue on to Urumqi. The other flight, also diverted to Lanzhou, was stopped for a police check. Nothing was found on that flight either. At least 13 troops have been killed after pro-Russian activists attacked a military checkpoint in eastern Ukraine days before a presidential election. The attack near the town of Volnovakha is the deadliest raid in weeks of fighting in eastern Ukraine. The country's acting president says the attackers were trying to seize the town, but troops successfully defended it. The paramilitary has seized the power, suspending the country's constitution and dismissing its caretaker government. A curfew has now been imposed across Thailand. The Senate will remain in place, and the Army Chief, General Prayut Chan-o-cha, will assume the duties of the Prime Minister until a new one is in place. Earlier, the military declared a 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. curfew and demanded top government officials, including the ousted Prime Minister, report to the Military Commission. The whereabouts of acting Prime Minister are unclear at this moment. The Libyan interim parliament has announced to hold a general vote on June the 24th. The election seems more imminent now as the retired Major General Khalifa Haftar waged a war against the General National Congress, trying to force it to abandon power. The general, who played a key role in toppling Libya's former leader Muammar Gaddafi, led his allied forces on Sunday to attack GNC compound and the airport road, leaving 2 dead and more than 60 injured. Haftar claimed he intended to purge terrorists from the parliament and the city, while the interim government and parliament condemned him for trying to stage a coup. Elections to the European Parliament have kicked off in Britain. Millions of Britons flocked to polling stations to decide who can represent them in the European legislature. A total of 73 members of the European Parliament are up for grabs in the country, based on the proportional representation voting mechanism. Citizens are asked to vote for a party rather than an individual. The UK Independence Party has topped most opinion polls in Britain in recent months. Results of the elections are scheduled to be announced on Sunday when voting is closed across the 28 member states of the European Union. Britain and the Netherlands are the first two countries to start the European Parliament elections this year. China has launched a $2 billion fund to be invested through the African Development Bank. This is the first time China has put money into Africa through a multilateral institution rather than directly through a deal with an African government. The resources from the fund are expected to be provided over a 10-year period and will be used alongside the African Development Bank's own resources to finance eligible sovereign and non-sovereign guaranteed development projects in Africa. The AGTF is expected to be immediately set up to be used to co-finance some projects before the end of this year. Reuters news agency is reporting that China Mobile has awarded its second batch of 4G telecom equipment contracts, with ZTE and Huawei Technologies securing the bulk of the deal. Reuters cited sources as saying ZTE and Huawei have been awarded 34% and 31% of the work, respectively. And that's the latest from CRI News. I'm Ding Lili in Beijing.
This is People in the Know, a weekday forum for in-depth coverage of the news shaping China, the world, and your life. Now here's your host, Cheng Wang.
Voting for the European Parliament kicked off yesterday, starting in the UK and the Netherlands. Other countries will hold their polls on Sunday. Around 400 million people are eligible to participate in the vote. Some of the main candidates seeking to become president of the European Commission, the most powerful office in the European Union, include Jean-Claude Juncker from the European People's Party, Martin Schulz of the Progressive Alliance and the Socialists and Democrats, and Guy Verhofstadt of the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats. The European parliamentary elections have been drawing little interest from many people in the general public. Voter turnout is largely expected to be small, perhaps even smaller than the 43% turnout rate of 2009. Critics say that the low turnout in the elections would erode the legitimacy of the European Union as a democratic institution. The European parliamentary election comes after an intense 5 years of recession, a pervasive debt crisis, and austerity policies. The economic situation in many European economies is beginning to improve, but the role of the European Union in handling the past 5 years of economic problems will no doubt be on the minds of many European voters as they head to the polls. So what can experts tell us about the significance of these European elections? And might the results potentially influence the way that China deals with the EU? 你好, you are listening to People in the Know, bringing you insights into the headline news in China and around the world. I'm Chen Guan in Beijing. First, Nathan Weekly King speaks to Frederick Erickson, economist and director of the European Center for Political Economy in Brussels.
Dr. Erickson, welcome to the program. Thanks for talking to us. Thanks for having me. So, the European Union is obviously an influential international governing body, but at the same time, this election and this process has been criticised for being something that many Europeans don't really care that much about. For example, one poll has indicated that 62% of people polled had no interest in voting. I mean, how do you look at these two factors, both the power of the EU and the level of interest in this election?
It's absolutely true that the idea of the concept itself is trying to give the European Union a democratic personality of the kind that we have in nation states in Europe has not been a successful idea. We're seeing a decline in voter participation in the course of the past decade in elections to the European Parliament. We are now, despite the fact that for 5 years of a topic on authority, we're not seeing a strong appetite from the electorate to participate in a democratic debate about
the shape of European policies or EU policies for the next 5 years. There is now a suggestion that the representation of this election is going to be smaller than we had in 2009, which was the last time there was an election. And of course, that is a big problem, and it's a big challenge overall for the EU that there is such a great distance between policies that are being decided and shaped in Brussels and the overall lack of an appetite on the part of the electorate to participate more in that particular political process. Do you think that this lack of appetite, as you put it, amongst voters is damaging to the credibility of the European Parliament? I think it is, and I think this is one of the greatest challenges for the European Parliament as well as the European Union process, that there is such a gap, there is such a deficit, a democratic deficit in the politics now. I wouldn't say it's undermining the credibility of the policies that are being formed in Brussels, but in the long term, the European Union and its European project is going to be something which can basically build up a classic democratic institutions and a classic democratic structure which needs to find a way to address these issues. And some of these potential reforms will be about empowering the European Parliament to even more, to make elections much more consequential for the shape of policy that are being framed in Brussels. But I think people different tracks could also be to try to take away the sort of idea that has been guiding the EU policy since 2079 when the Parliament was created. It is that the Parliament is going to be the democratic representative body for EU policy. An alternative idea is to go for much greater participation from national parliaments in shaping EU policy, or to go for policies in the European Union which is not based on the idea that it should continue to expand the field of policy that is concerned, that perhaps some issues can be returned to member states that they can deal with it without having an influence that the EU. The handling of the European debt crisis by the EU will surely be influential in how people think about this European Parliament and, of course, therefore these elections. Do you think that the attitudes to the EU will largely become polarized between the supporters and the detractors of some of the austerity programs that we've seen in Europe? Well, I've certainly seen such a trend in the past years, and that sort of trend has been much stronger in countries than it has been elsewhere. I think what we're seeing now is that populist parties on the left and the right and extremist parties, they are certainly going to gain seats in the new parliament. They're going to become a larger fraction of the European Parliament after this election. But we're still talking about an opinion political parties that are not going to have much of an influence in the European Parliament. I think when we look at established parties, the centre-left, the centre-right, the liberals, the Greens, I think the problem that many voters are having right now is that they can't detect on a different system. That when there is TV debate between the top candidates for the European Commission President post now in the election campaign, they don't see any difference between the candidates. They don't see any difference about what sort of policies they want to pursue in the next 5 years. And I think that particular element is past, that the established parties are not offering voters a chance to vote on an established party that differs from each other. And I think that is one of the great disadvantages of European Parliament and the elections right now, that there is no effective choice being offered to those voters. And therefore, because, if I'm understanding you correctly, because those centrist, more mainstream parties seem very close in the eyes of many Europeans, voters are either not interested in the process, or the people who are interested are more likely to vote for some of these more extremist, more anti-EU parties, like what you were mentioning before. Exactly. If the average voter who doesn't want to vote on an extremist or populist party, if that voter doesn't feel that there is a consequence of voting for the centre left or the centre right or the liberals or the greens, then they're probably not going to vote at all. They just feel that they're not being offered a choice. Therefore, the upper class participating in this democratic process will be smaller than it could be. And you're right, some of the people who feel very strongly about participating now in the vote, they are beginning to look for parties that represent a view which is anti-EU, anti-globalization, anti-immigration, etc. To look at some of those examples specifically, I mean, do you think that parties like the Front National or politicians like Geert Wilders or the UK Independence Party, do you think that these political forces will become more influential after these European parliamentary elections? Well, they will become more influential in their own countries, but I don't think they're going to become more influential in the European Parliament. The rise of these political parties, I think, it's a big embarrassment for Europe and it's a big political challenge for Europe, but it's mostly a challenge within nation states in Europe rather than in Brussels. In the European Parliament, I don't think they don't have any influence at all, simply because they are not residing to Brussels in order to effect change on policy there. They know that they cannot really do that from the European Parliament. Likewise, the reaction from the established parties will most likely be that we're going to see more of a grand commission style political approach in the European Parliament between the centre left and the centre right in order to avoid having some of these parties to earn the reputation have the same votes and important votes in the European Parliament. So in that sense, I don't think the rise of these parties in the European election is going to have much of an influence at all, apart from pushing the centre right and the centre left much closer to each other. That was Dr. Frederick Erickson, as the Director of the European Centre of International Political Economy. Dr. Erickson, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Our discussion continues after a short break. The in-depth current affairs show with insights on the news that shapes China and the world. People in the know instruct you to have a world better.
你好, you are listening to People in the Know, bringing you insights into the headline news in China and around the world.
I'm King Guan in Beijing. Today we're talking about the European parliamentary elections.
For a Chinese perspective, Nathan Wakeling King speaks to Xi Hua, Director of the Center for EU Studies at the China Institute of Economic Studies.
Professor Singh, welcome to the program. Oh, that's my pleasure. So the European Union is an influential international governing body, but according to some accounts, the elections have not attracted the interest of even many Europeans, or at least not in comparison to domestic national elections. To what extent are the European parliamentary elections important in an international context? Maybe you could talk about it from a Chinese perspective as well. Yes, objectively speaking, European Union parliamentary election is a very big political event. From Chinese perspective, roughly we can say it's an internal affairs of European Union. But if we have a further analysis, if we have a closer look to the implication, to the significance of this European Union parliamentary election, I believe that China can say its right to be very effective indifferent towards outcome of the participation of this parliamentary election. Since as we know, according to Lisbon City, the European Union Parliament has no right to participate to the decision making within the European Union. Even the Parliament is not the final maker of important decisions. So it's very useful for the outside to give a quite closer look of the process of the new election and to evaluate the possible changes of the role played by a newly elected European Parliament in the decision-making of European Union. How do you assess the likelihood that changes in the European Parliament will affect China's dealings with European countries? For China's attitude, I believe that China has two reasons to pay attention to European Union parliamentary elections. First of I said the European Union's Parliament has a larger right to participate to the decision making by European Union. If as it transfers the nationalist, the extremist party will increase their representation in the newly elected parliamentary of the European Union. European Union decisions risk to be more inclined for protectionist measure prevent external economic interests. That is certainly a good news for China. The second reason is European Union Parliament is a platform for expression of public opinion. In the past, a great number of statements made by European Union's Parliament was not so friendly, not so objective, while they make public statements their opinion about China, about the relations between European Union and China. So this kind of statements are simply not conducive to a better atmosphere in the relations between Europe and China. So China has to pay attention to see the newly elected European Union Parliament. China's trial efforts to make European Union Parliament more friendly, more objective, and they have to publish statements on Chinese the situation of the relation between Europe and China. From this reason, I believe that even the election is prolonged and internal affairs, China can be fairly indifferent. Let's talk a little bit about the economic situation in Europe, because obviously the debt crisis in Europe has been one of the most influential and dramatic events in Europe for decades. Do you think that the debt crisis in Europe has effectively increased the power of Brussels and its European Union bureaucrats to influence the policies of member countries? Certainly, since the recent European debt crisis was the worst financial and economic crisis since the end of Second World War. So the survival of not only of the Eurozone but of the entire European Union was at stake. A collective response to this unprecedented crisis was certainly indispensable, even a life-saving measure. So, European Union facing this unprecedented crisis has taken a great number of unprecedented measures, such as signing of a number of conventions aimed to tighten financial discipline of Eurozone member countries, even European Union's member countries, such as unprecedented monetary relaxation measures by ECB and a great number of other unprecedented measures taken by European Union together with IMF and ECB. That certainly produced very heavy influence to the member countries of Eurozone and even of European Union's member countries, especially for the countries of having debt. That influenced not only the policy of these countries of heavy debt, but has introduced a regime change in quite all the member countries of heavy vote, from Greece to Italy, even to Ireland. Roughly all the countries for heavy vote experienced regime change. Certainly, all these measures, the key measure of solving health crisis is austerity measures, and the citizens of these countries of high debt were the first victim of these very tough austerity measures. So there is very large dissatisfaction of the citizens of this country. The government, the party in power are still under very high pressure. So objectively, logically, European Union, Eurozone authority will oblige to take measures that certainly influence the internal relations between European Union institutions and a certain number of countries, especially the countries of heavy debt, and that influence also the internal political situation of quite the entire number of countries of heavy debt. I mean, as the economic situation improves, obviously the economic situation in Europe is not perfect at the moment, but as it begins to improve, how do you think this will affect the role that the European Union plays in European politics? Well, certainly, definitely is a better situation for restoring the image of European Union institutions. But I don't believe that the development for satisfaction settlement are still remaining. And even we notice a certain improvement of economic situation in most of the member countries of the European Union, the problems are still remaining, especially the problem of the lack of jobs are still quite threatening, such that even in a number of countries like France, the problem remains quite severe, threatening the prestige, the reputation of the government and of the party in power. So European Union image among citizens in Europe are certainly improved, but European Union has to do more to restore totally the confidence of citizens towards European Union institutions. Okay, well, finally, the past few years have seen the emergence of a number of political parties that share nationalistic or anti-EU political views, examples being Golden Dawn in Greece and the Front National in France, and a few others in other countries like UKIP in Britain and Wilders in the Netherlands. How do you think these political forces will affect the election? The emergence of nationalist political party, extremist political party are essentially a new phenomenon in European political life in recent years. We have to be vigilant, we have to pay attention. But what is more important, I believe, is for the government, for the party in power in different European countries to be really clear awareness about the source, about the reason for the emergence of that kind of political parties. These governments, these parties in power should make efforts to get more close to their people's request, to their people's interests, in order to reduce the ground of the emergency of the far right political party in European political life. But on the other hand, I don't think we have to overstate the real political strength, the real political influence in that kind of extremist political party. Certainly, the government born in Greece makes a big noise in European political life. But this political party, his reputation, his image are very controversial still. That was Professor Shang Hua, our Senior Research Fellow and Director of the Center of EU Studies at the China Institute of International Studies. Professor Singh, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. My pleasure.
The EU is a powerful institution, so these elections do matter. But it seems that in the minds of many Europeans, there's a gap between the EU's power and the EU's legitimacy as an effective force of government. Questions or comments for us can be sent to pik@cri.com.cn. For program producers Chen Shanming, Nathan Wakeling, King, and Ding Heng, I'm Jingjing Guan in Beijing. Join us at the same time next Monday. You're listening to CRI News Plus Radio. Email us at newsplus@cri.com.cn or get in touch with us the old-fashioned way. Pick up a pen and write to us. Our address is English Service, China Radio International, Beijing, China. Postal code 10040. CRI News Plus Radio, where what you say a new perspective by visiting CRIEnglish.com. One stop for everything you've ever wanted to know about China. You want up-to-date analysis, amazing video reports, live radio, and the odd laugh along the way?
What's affecting our Chinese
live coverage to Congress? Log on to CRIEnglish.com and get to know the middle kings. CRIEnglish.com. Exploring the lives of ordinary Chinese people, sharing stories of impressive personalities. Life Up Close, presenting real China in real Chinese living.
Hello and welcome to Life Up Close, your weekly show where we discuss people, lifestyles, and China's ever-changing society. I'm Yang Mei in Beijing. Everyone dreams, but might vary from person to person and from time to time. A policeman in eastern China's Zhejiang province dreamed of making short film to showcase the day-to-day lives of his fellow officers. We'll meet this multi-talented young man and take a sneak peek at his maiden short film. Speaking of films, the 67th Cannes International Film Festival is currently underway in the French Riviera. Taiwan-born film director An Li is the one who attends Cannes frequently and served as a jury member of the competition last year. A little later on today's show, we'll get up close with this globe-trotting director that epitomizes the concept of globalization in cinema.
The best way to get back to work, but I had to take a long rest after shooting Life of Pi.
Stay with us on Life Up Close this episode. Zhang Hanchao is a young officer working at a police station in Kaihua County, Eastern China's Zhejiang province. The 24-year-old set out to shoot a short film entitled One Day of Uncle John's Life several months ago to portray the daily happenings of his fellow police officer. Zhang says that he and his colleagues are a far cry from the stereotype of tough guys in a uniform. Policemen have multifaceted characters, and their lives are very colorful. Owen has the story. Zhang Hanchao and his team are shooting the most exciting scene of the entire movie, the apprehension of the thief. Zhang graduated from the Hangzhou Police Academy in 2012 and returned to his hometown of Kaihua to serve as a police officer. During his time at school, Zhang always dreamed of solving all sorts of complicated criminal cases and becoming a hero of his hometown. But the young man soon realized that the reality of police work at the grassroots level was different from what he had previously imagined. Kaihua is located in the westernmost part of Zhejiang and is the source of the Qiantang River. The tiny county, with a population of 340,000, is famous for its picturesque natural beauty and simple and spoiled lifestyle. The local people are so kind-hearted and law-abiding that police here generally deal with trivial cases in their routine work, such as neighborhood disputes, conflicts between couples, and drunken driving. Seldom, if ever, do they encounter more serious cases like murder or rape. Zhang always liked to watch movies, so he decided to make a short film on his own in an attempt to help people better understand his fellow cops. Zhang Hanchao says all the storylines in his film are based on real life, so this is more of a documentary than a fictional movie. All the cast and crew working on the film are Zhang's colleagues and friends, and they agreed to be in the movie without pay. The crew helped make the movie in their spare time, but that doesn't mean they took the film lightheartedly. For instance, one particular scene needed 20 takes before they got it right. It reinforced the belief that amateur filmmakers have to work hard if they wish to achieve a relatively high standard in their work. As for producer and director Zhang Hanchao, he put almost all his savings into this film project.
我觉得我遇到最大的困难就是完成这部电影的梦想和我自己的专注形成一个冲突的时候，有人看我真的是非常忙的，而且我现在是3天不值班，工作之前就想睡觉。
Arranging my time between work and film shooting is the most difficult part. As you know, work in a police station can be very engaging. I dine for a good night's sleep after a whole day's work. Now that I have put my mind into making this short film, I have to put all my energy and efforts into making it a good one. I hope the average citizens can get a thorough understanding of us in uniform and get to know the unseen sides of our job.
This is a police film. All the vehicles and equipment needed to be authentic. Zhang said that all the police wagons appearing in his film were borrowed from the local police station under the approval of higher authorities. Wang Hongcheng is the director of the police station where Zhang Hanchao works. He says Zhang's short film project deserves their full backing.
他这是这个微电影，是一个很好的这种材质。他从我们培训的老师呢，他就这个促进了我们年轻民警对这个职业本身的认可，也增加了这个青年民警之间的一种团结协作。
Shooting the short film is a good way to enhance solidarity and cooperation between our young police officers. Meanwhile, the viewers would have a better understanding of us policemen working at the grassroots level.
Wang Hanchao says solving serious criminal cases and being a hero can be one aspect of the police work. But the reality is that policemen are more likely to be confronted with matters more commonly seen in daily life. In Zhang's work, it is the process of handling these small and trivial tasks that help these officers grow into towering trees that can shelter society. At this moment, Zhang is busy editing the short film. We'll just have to wait to see what happens in one day of Uncle Zhang's life.
到今天为止都已经全部拍摄完成。
For CI, I'm Luo Wei.
谢谢我们全体剧组人员送老师的，然后我们所有的拍摄能够体现一个基层公安民警的一个工作，我们把它展现出来。
See China.
Meet its people.
Share the experience.
Life up close.
You're listening to Life Up Close. From an amateur filmmaker to a truly professional one. Now many filmmakers have gone from one country to another to live and work. Few have explored the idea of multiculturalism as deeply or inherently as An Li, a Taiwan-born film director who has transcended culture and linguistic barriers to speak to audiences all over the world. A man equally at home with Jane Austen or the Marvel comic universe, the American West or China's Qing Dynasty, a family drama or the trials and tribulations of unrequited love. An Li's appeal is broad, crossing high and low culture, be it from the East or the West. Li is able to negotiate consistently back and forth between the two countries and two audiences, and is epitome of globalization and its effect on the film world. Now sit back and relax as you get to know more about the avid filmmaker and enjoy some of the exciting scenes from his award-winning films. Born in Pingdong County, southern Taiwan in 1954, An Li was the son of a high school principal with traditional ideas about education. The father encouraged academic excellence and achievements in his children, something An never achieved in his early life. The family saw movies once a week, mostly Hollywood or Hong Kong films. For the father, these films were mere entertainment, but for An Li, they became an obsession and a goal. Not surprised at all, his decision of going to the United States to study film and theater has met strong opposition from his father.
长辈在这个传统里面对戏这个东西还看不上眼，他们会觉得说film戏演戏都是很不正经的事情。
In my father's eyes, actor is a disgraceful occupation. He was angry at my career choice. We too have been on bad terms since I went to the States to study film production, despite his strong objections. We spoke less than 100 sentences with each other in the following 20 years. My father gradually accepted my choice, not because his idea about entertainment changed, but because he found that I didn't turn into a flashy juggler in the showbiz world.
It is safe to say that this father-son relationship and An Li's identity as an outsider deeply impacts all of his films. An Li is an outsider to his native Taiwan, having spent most of his adult life in the US, and an outsider to America, being foreign-born and raised in a far different culture. His films not only capture the essence of Chinese culture and family dynamics as skillfully as they do American life and iconography, but also express the commonalities and the conflicts between Eastern and Western traditions. From his first prize-winning work, Tuition, or Pushing Health in 1992, to Xi'an, The Wedding Banquet, the outsider figure and the father are put at odds.
上了年纪了，这做的怎么样？你们这些录影带看了吗？看。我给你换台湾节目看看。
Tuition focuses on a Chinese Tai Chi master retiring to suburban New York to live with son, grandson, and American daughter-in-law under one roof. In Xi'an, the father is a retired general who wants nothing more than grandson to carry on his family line, while the son is made an outsider by means of his sexuality and has to keep his alternate life in America hidden from his parents. The Wedding Banquet centers on Shen marriage, Wei Tong, played by Winston Chow, with his tenant Wei Wei, played by Mei Jane, in order to get her a green card and make the parents leave him alone about marriage. When the parents show up in New York to attend the wedding, however, the fourth couple has to create a real life together. Wei Tong is pulled in 4 different directions by the 4 people who have come to inhabit his home and his life, each expecting something different of him, until he can no longer cope.
他们会受不了，将近20年，我生活在一个大反眼里面，生活里面有好多的感受，痛苦、快乐，我很想跟你们分享。
Here, the father is seen as a burden to a son who has to deal with his dad's presence and wishes. In the end, having accidentally made his wife Wei Wei pregnant allows him to fulfill his father's expectations in a way he never imagined. The compromise that Wei Tong reaches himself His lover Simon and Wei Wei living together to raise the baby again allows the outsider to remain an outsider, without ignoring or rebelling against the society in which he lived.
This was your great idea.
Though some films appeal more to the Chinese market and others to the Western one, Lee's constant emphasis on bridging the gap and offering something for everyone is admirable. It has allowed him to create 3 of Hollywood's unquestionable modern masterpieces: The Ice Storm in 1997, Ride with the Devil in 1999, and The Brokeback Mountain in 2005, as well as 2 great films in the Chinese language, 卧虎藏龙, or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in 2000, and 色戒, Last Caution in 2007. Lee's diversity of audience and subject matter, contrasted with his unity of theme and technique, make him one of the most unique filmmakers in cinema today.
You will find out soon enough from my will that the estate of Laurel lies left to me in such a way as prevents me from dividing it between my 2 families. I'm so father. It cannot be good for you. Norland, in its entirety, is therefore yours.
Lee's 1995 film, Sense and Sensibility, applies Lee's established family dynamic to a new setting, that of Jane Austen's English countryside. Helpful? What do you mean, helpful?
Dearest, I mean to give them £3,000.
His other English language film, Brokeback Mountain, won Lee a deserved Best Director Academy Award in 2005, making him the first Asian to receive it. It has brought Lee recognition in the West, not only as an Asian director, but simply as a film director.
This is one of the work here. Working family portrait,
Brokeback Mountain and the film that follows, Last Caution, represents a new path for Lee, and despite differences in language, genre, and time periods, serve as reflections of one another. Both adapted from concise short stories into near-perfect films, displaying 2 inverse possibilities resulting from heart-wrenching attraction and love. Brokeback Mountain and The Last Caution have been described by Lee as visions of heaven and hell, respectively. One about a love that lasts a lifetime but never finds expression. The other about a love that lasts only a moment but destroys life. Lee is known mostly for his chameleon-like diversity, whereby each film is an entirely different genre subject from the previous one. However, every choice he makes further refines his single exploration of the relationship between society and the individual. When viewed in sequence, his work is remarkably consistent. Lee is no doubt a very devoted film director. He says he suffers from a certain period of depression after finishing each film, and The Life of Pi is the one he suffers from the most.
过去3年有几个最好是我让他赶快做的工作，也不是说年纪到了看判特别困难的一个东西。
The best way for me to cure my depression after finishing a film is to quickly get back to work. But I had to take a long rest after shooting Life of Pi. The 3D movie took us 4 years to make, and I felt extremely exhausted as I had to deal with my artistic conscience, box office pressure, and the expectation from the audience. Over the years, I've been suffering heavy internal turbulence because I put too much of myself into each film I made.
My name is Bai. I have been in a shipwreck. I am on a lifeboat alone.
The 2012 adventure drama, which has earned nearly $600 million worldwide, is a philosophical adventure tale featuring a young man named Pi, who is the son of a zookeeper in Pondicherry, India. Pi finds the world he knows swept away while his family sells the zoo and sets sail for Canada with a few of its remaining animals. When a storm capsizes the ship, only Pi escapes and is set adrift in a lifeboat that is also the refuge of an enormous Bengal tiger. It is Lee's second Best Director Oscar award, after winning with Brokeback Mountain in 2006.
To Ang Lee.
During his acceptance speech, the Oscar-winning director also thanked his wife, Jane Lin, a New York-based microbiologist, for her understanding and support of his movie career.
My wife, Jan Lin, will be married 30 years.
重要的，所以在美国西方呢，结婚证词幕是要说不管是好的坏的，你得一起过，欢喜冤家嘛。
My wife had to endure me, whether I was a judge or humble house husband, or a depressed filmmaker hiding at home to recover after finishing each movie, or a shy big shot but just lazy. She knows me better than anyone else, just like the wedding vows we took more than 30 years ago. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, she is always there for me.
Lee says he's especially thankful to his wife for the following 6 years since he graduated from New York University with a master's degree in film production. He had to stay home and depend on his wife to support family financially. It's his wife who believed in his talents and encouraged him to hold on. While raising their 2 sons at home, Lee dreamed up ideas and wrote screenplays for the future. Today, Ang Lee still has a lot of dreams for his future journey in filmmaking. Lee says he likes to play different roles and has a lot of curiosity. Making film is the best job he could ever imagine. Well, we thank Ang Lee for the wonderful movies he made for us, and I believe his future journeys will bring us more insight into our world. 因为梦着你的梦，所以背上着你的悲伤，幸福着你的幸福。因为路过你的路，因为哭着你的苦，所以快乐。追逐着你的追逐，因为这不甘心，因为这不甘心，所以找着你的真。This is the last up close. Thank you for staying with us. A new survey shows Shanghai has become the most popular destination for people to migrate to when looking for work. CI's Li Dong has more.
Hai is a young woman who decided to move to Shanghai after working for several years in Beijing.
最早来上海的时候，我曾经去办理过就是这个户口指录的这样一套手续嘛。When I first came to Shanghai, I needed to move my hukou into the city. I felt the staff at the public service counters were very professional and they treated me very nice. I felt respected while I was dealing with the whole process.
Like many other migrants drawn to the large cities, Hai says there are obvious advantages beyond jobs, including more social benefits, such as better health care, education, public facilities, and overall culture.
你能明显的感觉到，就是你所生活的这个社区，这个居委会会非常的热心，哪怕是你说 You feel that the community cares about your life. For instance, if you call them and tell them there is a hole in the road that needs to be fixed, you will see maintenance workers fix it the next day, or even the day you call them. Your problems are properly addressed. You can get a quick and positive response when you need help in Shanghai.
In new research by Data Line, a Shanghai-based financial magazine suggests Shanghai has become the most popular destination for migration, recording a net inflow over 9.5 million people. Beijing ranks the second with 7.7 million migrants. And the southern city of Shenzhen ranks the third with a net inflow of around 7.5 million people. The explosive inflow of migrants has been generating concerns among many residents who worry about the impact the large inflow of people is having on resources, such as land, the environment, water resources, and even social stability. Huang Yan, director of the Beijing Municipal Commission of Urban Planning, So its populations in big cities need to be distributed to the surrounding areas.
其实最大的是控制功能，要疏解功能。The biggest task for us is municipal reallocation. Big inflows of people creates a lot of pressure on the city's facilities and public services. Municipal governments need to reallocate the city's functions to the surrounding areas, while at the same time upgrading the quality of public services in the neighboring areas to provide better education and medical resources.
The National Bureau of Statistics estimates over half of this country's population now lives in cities. The figure is expected to hit 60% by 2020 for CRI and Lido.
Well, with that, we come to the end of this edition of Livestock Close. Hope you've enjoyed it. Questions and comments are always welcome. You can email us at live@cri.com.cn, or you can log on to website www.newsplusradio.cn to listen to today's show or catch up with any of the previous editions. I'm your May. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you at the same time next week.
Oh, yeah, sweet. Honey, I want to learn Chinese.
其实并不难. It can be done.
欢乐汉语 Chinese Studio.
Tim, you should be an expert now in ordering food in a Chinese restaurant.
Yes, for the last couple of weeks on Chinese Studio, we've been learning how to order food, drinks, call the waiter or waitress over, and all sorts of useful expressions. But now the meal is ending, I'm full, and we need to wrap up this transaction.
Okay, but we have only one more restaurant lesson left. Let's check keywords of the day. Keywords of the day. Excuse me, can I get the bill? 服务员，买单。How much is it? 多少钱 Can I get the receipt? 开张发票。How late are you open until? 你们几点关门 All in today's Chinese Studio.
Okay, Jim, after eating all of this marvelous Chinese food, I am now full and ready to go home, or maybe even better, go for a walk. So how do I ask for the bill?
Well, you should say 服务员买单。
服务员买单。
服务员 waiter or waitress. We learned it in our last lesson.
Right. 服务员
买单 to pay for the bill.
买单。
买 means buy. 买 the third tone.
买
单 the first tone. Here it means bill.
单。
服务员买单。
服务员买单。服务员买单。
好的。
多少钱？
一共20块。From the previous conversation, you may have found a way of asking, how much is it?
Yes, in Chinese, we've learned this before. It's 多少钱？
多少钱 How much is it?
钱 the second tone, right?
Yes.
服务员买单。多少钱？
您的餐费是200块。
So yeah, Jim, how do you say, can I get a receipt in Chinese?
It's 开张发票。
开张发票。
开发票 means you want the waiter or waitress to write a receipt for you. 发票 means receipt. We learned it in the taxi lesson, remember?
Yes. 发票。
张 is short for 一张。
张 So like 点儿 is short for 一点儿, right?
Exactly. Together it's 开张发票。
开张发票。服务员买单。多少钱？
您的餐费是200块。
开张发票。
好的，您稍等。
Yeah, Jeff, I often have a late dinner, so I'm always worried if they will suddenly close the restaurant while I'm eating. And plus, I may want to come back another day late. So what's the Chinese for how late are you open until?
Well, Cam, it's not very good for your health. Anyways, 你们几点关门
你们几点关门？
你们 means you.
你们
几点 what time?
几点？
关门 normally it means close the door, but here it has a special meaning of close.
关门 close.
So how late are you open until is 你们几点关门？
你们几点关门？服务员，你们几点关门？
晚上10点。
服务员，买单。
好的，
多少钱？
一共20块。
Keyword reminder. Excuse me, can I get the bill?
服务员，买单。
How much is it? 多少钱 Can I get the receipt? 开张发票 How late are you open until? 你们几点关门 Well, Jim, now I'm sure that you know how to speak Chinese when you are in a restaurant. It has been a busy 2 weeks of learning for you.
Yes, it sure has, yeah. And that brings us to the question of the day. How do you say, how late are you open until in Chinese?
明天见
Send your answer to the following email address, chinese@cri.com.cn.
Discover modern day China by feeling the pulse of its economic, cultural, and social evolutions. This is Beijing 10:08 a.m. Discover Plus Radio, a division of China Radio International.
The following program is a recording of a live broadcast transmitted 7 a.m. Beijing time.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world.
This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday by China Radio International.
Shane Bigham with you on this Friday, May 23rd, 2014. Welcome to the Beijing Hour. We are live from the Chinese capital. On the program this morning, there are 31 confirmed deaths now following yesterday's terror attack in Xinjiang. Chinese authorities have had to step up efforts against domestic militants. The authorities have also reacted to accusations from Vietnam that China's violated international laws, called them groundless, and at least 13 troops have been killed at a checkpoint in eastern Ukraine. In business, China's launched a $2 billion development fund for Africa. Sports, footballer Luis Suarez has surgery but says he will play in the World Cup. Entertainment, the new X-Men movie is now on screens in China. It's 2 minutes past the hour. Turning to the weather, we have Alexander O'Clock in studio. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm feeling a bit noisy today. Even though the temperature's about the same, it's not so humid as we've had for the rest of the week.
Yeah, well, it's nice and air-conditioned in the booth, so I'm actually rather enjoying that this morning.
Okay, so Beijing will be sunny today with a high of 33 degrees Celsius. Overnight temperatures should drop down to only around 20, so you should probably feel comfortable and not to wrap up warm tonight. Just go out as you want. Shanghai will be cloudy during the daytime with a high of 27. Overnight it will be clear with a low of 19. In Chongqing it will be overcast with a high of 26. Overnight lows are expected to be around 20. Elsewhere in the world, staying in Asia, Islamabad will be cloudy with a high of 36. Kabul will be sunny with a high of 21. Over in North America, New York will see slight rain with a high of 21 degrees. Washington will be cloudy with a high of 24 degrees. Honolulu, overcast 28. Toronto, Canada will be cloudy with a high of 16 degrees. Finally, on to South America, Buenos Aires will be sunny with a high of 14. And Rio de Janeiro will see slight rain with a high of 26 degrees Celsius.
All right, thank you very much. Don't forget, there are several ways to keep in touch with us here at the Beijing Hour. The Weibo WeChat account is the Beijing Hour. Email us at beijinghour@cri.com.cn. 3.5 minutes past the hour. Chinese authorities are strongly condemning a terror attack in Xinjiang on Thursday and are reinforcing their resolve in the fight against terrorism. So far, 31 people have been confirmed dead, 94 others have been injured. The international community has also expressed condemnation for this violence. The CRI's Ding Lulu has more.
The terror attack took place at a market in the city of Guangzhou. Terrorists drove 2 vehicles into a crowd of people in a public square, tossing explosives at shoppers as they plowed through the massive gas before blowing up their vehicles. Chinese authorities have strongly condemned the attack and have vowed to work harder in fighting terrorism and safeguarding social stability. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hong Lei.
继续保持高压、重拳出击，全力维护社会的稳定。
In response to the attack, Chinese President Xi Jinping has pledged to solve the case quickly and severely punish terrorists, and to spare no effort in maintaining stability. The Chinese government is confident and capable of cracking down on violent terrorists.
So far, no claim of responsibility for the attack has been made. A task force led by the Public Security Minister, Guo Shengquan, has gone to Xinjiang to assist in the investigation. The regional government has launched an emergency response to treat survivors. Many of the dead and injured are elderly people who frequent the market in the morning. Casualties include people from both Han and Uyghur ethnic groups. It is the worst event in the far western region since riots in the capital in July of 2009. That incident saw nearly 200 people lose their lives, while more than 1,700 others were injured.
这次恐怖暴力事件再次显示了暴力恐怖分子反人类。
The violence, a further indication of the inhuman and anti-social nature of the terrorists, should be condemned by the Chinese people and the international community.
The attack has sparked strong condemnation from locals in Xinjiang. Noor Bakri, chairman of the Xinjiang regional government, issued his condemnation during a televised speech. He said terrorists will never stop the development of Xinjiang and vowed to doggedly peruse the perpetrators. Meanwhile, the international community has also issued condemnation and offered condolences to the victims. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has issued a statement saying that there is no justification for the killing of civilians. The United States, joined by Russia, France, and the European Union, also issued condemnations of the attack. U.S. State Department spokesperson Jan Psaki. The United States strongly condemns the violent terrorist attack today, May 22nd, against innocent citizens in a market area near People's Park in Urumqi, in the Xinjiang Autonomous Region of China. We offer our deepest condolences and sympathies to the victims, their families, and all of those affected by this tragedy. Xinjiang is a remote region in China. More than half of its population is made up of Muslim ethnic minorities. Violent attacks in the name of jihad have been increasing since 2009 and are the biggest threat to the region. The latest incident happened just weeks after an attack at a railway station in Urumqi, which killed 3 and injured 29 others. For CRI, this is the moment.
China's Foreign Ministry has released a new statement refuting Vietnamese authorities' remarks, accusing China of stirring tensions in the South China Sea. The statement follows a meeting between the Vietnamese Prime Minister and Philippine President in Manila. Nguyen Tan Dung says Vietnam and the Philippines are deeply concerned about the current situation resulting from China's practices, which they say violate international laws. They've urged the international community to strongly condemn China. Foreign Ministry spokesman Hong Lei says the accusation is groundless.
现在他又到国际上颠倒是非、混淆非白。
Now they are distorting the facts, conflating right and wrong on the global stage, blackening China and making unreasonable accusations against China. Who is the one who is repeatedly challenging other countries' sovereignty? Who is the one who is causing tensions in the sea? Who on earth is destroying peace and stability in the South China Sea? Facts speak louder than words.
The dispute involves efforts by the Vietnamese to disrupt Chinese efforts to drill for oil in the South China Sea. Vietnamese civilians responded to these efforts with a series of violent protests targeting Chinese and other foreign interests in Vietnam, resulting in the deaths of at least 2 Chinese nationals and injuries to more than 100 others. China has repeatedly urged Vietnam to stop its interference and to ensure the safety of Chinese citizens and institutions in Vietnam. Adding a bit to our previous story about the terrorist attack in Urumqi, we have a reaction now from Shen Deli, Vice Dean of the Institute of International Affairs at Fudan University in Shanghai, speaking with Beijing Hour's Paul James.
What needs to be done, in your estimation, to shore up security in Xinjiang right now?
I think probably we have to handle both from the root cause and from specific. From specific, wherever and whenever we meet with the terrorist attack, we have to crack it down. There is no mercy, seriously. And we should not have enough to deter such a terrorist. And from the root cause, we have to understand why they were doing it. We will not excuse these terrorists, but we need to know
why they would need to do it, why they would do the separatist, extremist, and terrorist. That would help us to decipher the reasons, and we would not excuse them, but we may adjust our approach in order to prevent such a terrible attack from recurring. These are the two things that I personally think we have to pay attention.
A fair number of academics like yourself have been calling for anti-terror legislation to be drafted up by the central authorities here in Beijing. Would you support something like that, a notion like that?
Of course. This country is ruled by law, and we are acting against terrorism without adequate law. And we need to have a unified tool to direct our action, how to handle such horrible behavior. So a law, particularly at this time, in regulating our response to such a terrible attack will be very helpful.
Now, the Chinese government has noted recently that a lot of outside influences, people from other countries, have been able to sneak material into Xinjiang and rile up these people who would take part in terrorist activities. How do we stop that from happening?
Physically, that is going to be very difficult because China's border line is too long. We cannot secure every inch of our border from being penetrated. Therefore, I don't think physically it's possible to stop such a penetrating through terrorist material, sensitive material from entering China. But fundamentally, it's up to our people who would reject such a material. So people have no interest in reading it. Therefore, we need to educate our population what is a fundamental interest for them and how their personal interest can be linked harmoniously with the national interest. So this is what I have mentioned. The root cause, our action against the terrorism.
Lastly, Professor, and as far as China's coordination with other countries around the world when it comes to terrorism, what else can be done to better, get together with countries not only in the region but around the world to deal with terrorism?
Actually, already China and US have done a lot dealing with the terrorism attack against America after 9/11. China and US have coordinated their intelligence sharing. They have allowed to dispatch each other's law enforcement officers to be posted in the other capitals. Now, China works with other members of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, including Russia and many 10 countries, in order to deal with terrorism in the Central Asia and the Xinjiang area. So we should extend such a kind of interstate cooperation in order to deal with the region-based and the very region-based terrorism. Therefore, our country would benefit eventually.
Sending Levi Sedin of the Institute of International Affairs at Fudan University in Shanghai, speaking with Beijing Hour's Paul James. Russia and China, two permanent members of the UN Security Council, have vetoed a draft resolution to refer the Syrian civil war to the International Criminal Court. The draft resolution was proposed by France and received 13 votes in favor and 2 against. Wang Min, the Deputy Chinese Permanent Representative to the United Nations.
Under the current circumstances, to forcibly return the situation in Syria to the ICC is neither conducive to building trust among all parties in Syria or to the early resumption of the negotiations in Geneva. It will only jeopardize the efforts made by the international community to push forward a political settlement.
The official notes that the very urgent issue now is to urge the government of Syria and the opposition to immediately begin a ceasefire and to resume the third round of the Geneva negotiations. Syria is not a party to the Rome Statute, which established the ICC, so the only way the Middle East country can be referred to the Hague-based tribunal is through the Security Council. The vote came just days before international Syrian mediator Lakhdar Brahimi is to step down, but he leaves that position on May 31st. At least 13 troops have been killed after pro-Russian activists attacked a military checkpoint in eastern Ukraine days before a presidential election. The attack near the town of Volnovakha is the deadliest rate in weeks of fighting in eastern Ukraine, acting Ukrainian President Alexander Turchinov.
The Russian separatists' aim was to attack and seize the city of Volnovakha. Our boys defended the city and didn't let them move forward. Regretfully, on fire from mortars and grenade launchers and heavy gunfire, our soldiers died for Ukraine. 13 people gave their lives for Ukraine.
clashes between the broke out in the West region. At least two injuries have been reported. Both the Luhansk and Donetsk regions have declared independence from the government in Kiev and have pledged to derail Sunday's vote. The leadership of the self-proclaimed republic in Luhansk has declared martial law and is asking Russia to send troops to protect civilians. International Monitoring Group, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, has appealed to all sides in Ukraine to refrain from violence. Tugral Apakan is the head of the OSCE monitoring mission in Ukraine.
But I do hope that there will be no military force used between now and the end of the electoral process in order to allow the electoral process to go forward. And I hope that message is being heard not only by the government side, but also by the other side.
OSCE observers are currently in the country to monitor that election coming up. Ukrainian authorities see the vote as a chance to diffuse tension and stabilize the country, but they've admitted it'll be impossible to stage any voting in some eastern areas of the country. The government's already requested a UN Security Council emergency meeting to help deal with the ongoing crisis. The Thai military has seized power, suspending the country's constitution and dismissing its caretaker government. The proof has now been imposed across Thailand. Army Deputy Spokesperson Untai Subari.
เรื่องความสงบเรียบร้อยในการปกครองประเทศจึงให้ยกเลิกประกาศ For peace and order in the country, we're canceling announcement number 5, issued on May the 22nd, 2014, regarding the suspension of the Thai Constitution. By using these messages from this announcement in class, one, the Constitution was abrogated, except for Article 2.
Subari says the Senate is going to remain in place and that Army Chief General Prayut Chan-o-cha will assume the duties of the Prime Minister until a new one is in place. Soldiers have dispersed groups of rival protesters in Bangkok. It's reported at least one leader of the pro-government Red Shirts activists is being detained. Other protesters left peacefully. Earlier, the military declared a 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew and demanded top government officials, including the ousted Prime Minister, report to the Military Commission. The whereabouts of acting Prime Minister Niwat Gung Sanpaisan are unclear at the moment. In New York, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon expressed serious concern about the military takeover. UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric.
The Secretary General is seriously concerned by the military takeover in Thailand today. He appeals for a prompt return to constitutional, civilian, democratic rule and an all-inclusive dialogue that will pave the way for long-term peace and prosperity in Thailand.
In the meantime, the U.S. is reviewing military and other assistance to Thailand. That includes looking at the ongoing exercise in Thailand involving roughly 700 U.S. Marines and sailors. The country's 12th coup since the absolute monarchy came to an end back in 1932. The U.S. is urging North Korea to refrain from provocative actions following the exchange of artillery fire between North and South Korea. Tensions heated up again on the Korean peninsula yesterday afternoon. North Korean forces fired numerous shells at a South Korean patrol ship in waters near the disputed maritime border on the west side of the peninsula. Young-Hyo Sik is head of the public relations for the South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff.
오늘 오후 6시경 영평도 서남밤 14km
On the southern side of the northern limit line, approximately 14 kilometers off the southwestern coast of Yeonpyeong Island, enemy artillery shells fell near a South Korean Navy vessel that was carrying out a patrol mission. Our Navy responded immediately by firing close to the enemy's vessel.
The exchange of fire follows an incident on Tuesday where South Korean Navy ships fired warning shots to repel 3 North Korean warships that briefly violated the disputed sea boundary, and Pyongyang has since vowed to retaliate. No injuries or damages from the South Korean patrol ship have been reported. South Korean residents living on the islands around where the shelling has taken place have been evacuated from their homes. It's 19 minutes past the hour.
The Beijing Hour, bringing you an hour of comprehensive news and information from both China and the rest of the world. We help you through your day with a mix of news, sports, and entertainment. We also bring you in-depth analysis of the day's big stories, as well as the most comprehensive business news of the day. The Beijing Hour, your very own window to China and the world.
today's business news. First of all, of course, the market numbers. We have Ding in studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Shane. Your stocks rose on Thursday as investors digested recent market swings and soft reading from U.S. economic growth. The Dow rose 0.1%, the S&P 500 added 0.2%, and the Nasdaq gained 0.6%. Trading volumes have been light in recent days, with Wall Street insiders citing caution on the part of investors. In economic news, existing home sales for April rose 1.3% on the low to a seasonally adjusted annualized rate of 4.65 million, below expectations for a 2% rise. The most claims for jobless benefits in the latest week rose 28,000 to 326,000 versus expectations of a rise to 310,000. In corporate news, shares of Chinese e-commerce company JD.com jumped to 10% in its IPO. These shares were priced at $19 late Wednesday, above expectations. Best Buy rallied 4.4% after the consumer electronics retailer topped fiscal first quarter earnings estimates but fell short on revenue, and said it expected declines in same-store sales for the current and third quarters. European markets gained after data showed business activity in the Eurozone continued to grow, but less at a slower pace. Germany stocks gained 0.25%, France CAC 40 added 0.2%, and London's FTSE 100 is flat.
Thanks for that. It's coming up on 21 past the hour. China's launched a $2 billion fund to be invested for the Africa Development Bank. The Africa-wide investment vehicle is dubbed the Africa Growing Together Fund. The first time China's put money into Africa through a multilateral institution rather than directly through a deal with an African government. The resources from the fund are expected to be provided over a 10-year period and will be used alongside the African Development Bank's own resources to finance eligible sovereign and non-sovereign guaranteed development projects in Africa. The AGTF is expected to be immediately set up to be used to co-finance some projects before the end of this year. China's Bright Food Group struck a deal on Thursday to buy a controlling stake in Israel's largest food company. State-owned Bright Food has announced it will acquire a 56% stake of dairy firm Tamuva from private equity house Apex. Bright Food did not disclose the sum, but the Israeli side valued the full company at about $2.5 billion. The deal is the latest in a multi-billion-dollar overseas acquisition spree by Bright Food. Meantime, the sale of one of Israel's leading companies has drawn mixed reactions in Israel. Avishai Braverman is the chairman of the Economic Affairs Committee in the Israeli Knesset.
My feeling that Israel is not a startup nation, it's only exit nation. Few people get very rich, and all our know-how for all good companies for the long term that give decent wages, and all the Israeli companies are being sold to foreign control. This is not what I call capitalism works for the long term.
Israelis and, of course, the city of Tel Aviv welcomed the acquisition.
I think selling the Tamuva to the Chinese, there's nothing wrong with it. It's one big village now, and it's a business matter, and I don't think we're going to get any harm from that. And I think it's a very positive thing.
As long as the settlement is beneficial for Israel, for the customers, and the Shemot, I can't see any problem. First, it's just one more company, we're being privatized.
Israel's government's recently been encouraging more Chinese investment in the country. The deal is one of the biggest ever in Israel's consumer markets. 23 past. Let's check out some of the other key events on the corporate front in China this week. And Doug Young joins me on the line, associate professor at Fudan University and former China Company chief of writers. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
So, first of all, JD.com's IPO seems to be exceeding expectations. The price surged more than 10% on the first day of trading, raised about $1.8 billion in total. What's your assessment of this IPO?
Actually, I mean, people were a bit surprised that we actually did do not too bad in the, compared to past IPOs. 10% gain isn't actually that big a gain on the trading debut, but the actual IPO price higher than the range they originally thought, so it's actually not bad. I mean, it's not awesome. It's not a 20-30% rise, but 10% is not too bad.
Well, it values the company at about $25 billion overall. Is that fair value?
Yeah, it's probably okay. This company is still losing money, so we'll have to sort of wait and see if they become profitable. 25 billion sounds probably okay because they're the number 2 e-commerce company in China. And everyone knows Alibaba's number 1, and Alibaba's supposed to be worth something like 150 or 200 billion dollars. So 25 billion relatively modest compared to Alibaba, but it sounds like it's probably about right.
So does this IPO give us any indication of what will happen to Alibaba's IPO coming up? I mean, are we comparing apples and oranges here?
Oh, no. I think there's very much an apples and apples comparison. No, it seems to bode pretty well for Alibaba, and I would say actually in some ways, this IPO may have benefited from Alibaba. People are getting excited about the whole China e-commerce story. People are saying, Alibaba's coming later, but in fact, like I say, Alibaba's already marketing its IPO, so I think what may have helped this one, and I think this probably bodes well for e-commerce both in China in general.
Okay, and turning to Shanghai company, Kuaibo fined 260 million yuan for rampant piracy. What's happening here?
Oh, this is a funny story. I think everybody had to read it twice when they saw that number because it was 260 or 206? Yeah, 260 million. So I thought that, this is like a massive fine. It's worth about $30 million US dollars, which, in the US or in other countries, this probably wouldn't be that massive a fine. But in China, if you've been here at any time at all, you see these fines that they usually put on companies for just egregious violations or like $100, $200, whatever. This seemed to be sending a pretty big signal that maybe China's going to get serious about finally cracking down on these pirates.
All right, thank you very much. That's Doug Young, Associate Professor at Fudan University, former China company news chief at Reuters. Reuters news agency is reporting that China Mobile has awarded its second batch of 4G telecom equipment contracts with ZTE and Huawei Technology securing the bulk of the deal. Reuters cited sources as saying that ZTE and Huawei have been awarded 34% and 31% of the work, respectively. Ericsson and Alcatel-Lucent SA were said to have each won 9% of the batch, while Nokia secured 8%. China Mobile, with more than 784 million mobile customers and 4.8 million 4G subscribers in April, is the world's largest telecoms company by subscribers. They confirmed the names of the winners but did not provide details. Technology giant Hewlett-Packard accidentally released its second quarter results before the U.S. stock markets closed. HP announced an 18% rise in profits, $1.3 billion for the second quarter, but the firm said that despite rising profits, it plans to lay off an additional 11,000 to 16,000 workers. 27 past, and time for a short break here on the Beijing Hour. Still to come in special reports, classical music in Beijing, and sports. The footballer gets surgery only 20 days out of the World Cup, vows to play anyway. Entertainment, the new X-Men movie is on screens in China. It's Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
News perspective by visiting CRIEnglish.com.
Your definitive stop for everything you ever wanted to know about China.
Do you want up-to-date analysis, amazing video reports, live radio, and the odd laugh along the way?
Log on to CRIEnglish.com and get to know the Middle Kingdom.
Wherever you are, China at your fingertips by visiting CRIEnglish.com. Be entertained,
Be informed.
and be inspired.
With CRIEnglish.com.
The Beijing Hour brings you 60 minutes of comprehensive news and information from China and the rest of the world. We help you through the day with a mix of news, sports, and entertainment. We also bring you in-depth analysis of the day's biggest stories, as well as the closing numbers from the global markets. Join us here on the Beijing Hour. Let's take a look at the world together.
What's happening in China? What's happening in China? What's happening in the world? What's happening in the world? People want to know. The in-depth current affairs show with insights on news that shapes China and the world. People in the know. Top source in the world. Every day, in every corner, a different person with a different story. Feature show Frontline explores societal behind the scenes and brings you fresh stories from today's China. Frontline, here on the radio and online at newsplusradio.cn. Technology has made the world a smaller place, but there is still so much we don't know. Every week, Postcards take you on a trip of exploration and discovery. From a small village in Afghanistan to a protected cultural heritage site in South America, from Africa's amazing natural landscapes to the most advanced tech displays in the world. Postcards, where you meet the world without actually taking a trip. Postcards. Echoes from ancient times with the tempo of the modern age. In the Spotlight gives you more choice from the vast landscape of authentic Chinese music and culture. In the Spotlight, the best of China's music and culture from north to south, east and west. In the Spotlight. Between family and career, they choose dreams. Between work and art, they choose passion. Between the divine and nature, they choose devotion. Between life and death, they choose love. For a journey of life, for an inspiration of soul. Yes, and voices from other lands. Everywhere look today, China is in your rings. But what about the lives behind the stories? How do ordinary Chinese live and work? And does everyone here know Kung Fu? Life Up Close answers the questions in your mind when you think of China. Over 1 billion people and as many stories from all over this vast land. Life Up Close, bringing you all you need to know about the real Chinese living here in China.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday by China Radio International.
Shane Bigham with you on this Friday morning. Still to come here on the Beijing Hour in special reports, listening to the classics in Beijing. Sports, turning up for the French Open. Entertainment, Spielberg, Coen Brothers, and actor Tom Hanks are all set to work on a Cold War thriller. First of all, a look at today's headline news. It's 32 past the hour. Chinese authorities have strongly condemned the terror attack that happened in Xinjiang on Thursday. So far, 31 people have been confirmed dead and 94 others injured. The international community has also condemned the violence. The attack took place at a market in the city of Urumqi. Terrorists drove 2 vehicles into a crowd of people in a public square, tossing explosives at shoppers as they plowed through the mass of people before blowing up their vehicles. Chinese authorities have vowed to work harder in fighting terrorism and safeguarding social stability. At least 13 troops have been killed after pro-Russian activists attacked a military checkpoint in eastern Ukraine days before a presidential election. The attack near the town of Volnovakh is the deadliest rate in weeks of fighting in eastern Ukraine. The country's acting president says the attackers were trying to seize the town. The troops successfully defended it. The Thai military has seized power, suspending the country's constitution and dismissing its caretaker government. A curfew is now being imposed right across Thailand. The Senate will remain in place, and the army chief will assume the duties of the prime minister until a new one's in place. Earlier, the military declared a 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew and demanded top government officials, including the ousted prime minister, report to the military commission. The Libyan interim parliament has announced to hold a general vote on June 25th. The election seems more imminent now as retired Major General Khalifa Haftar has waged a war against the General National Congress, trying to force it to abandon power. The general, who played a key role in toppling Libya's former leader, Muammar Gaddafi, led his allied forces on Sunday to attack GNC compounds and the airport road, leaving 2 dead, More than 60 others were injured after a claim that he intended to purge terrorists from the parliament and the city, while the interim government and parliament condemned him for trying to stage a coup. Elections to the European Parliament have kicked off in Britain. Millions of Britons flocking to polling stations to decide who can represent them in the European legislature. Right now, where a total of 73 members of the European Parliament, or 73 seats rather, are up for grabs in the country based on the proportional representation voting mechanism. Citizens are asked to vote for a party rather than an individual. The UK Independence Party has topped most opinion polls in Britain in recent months. Results of the elections are scheduled to be announced on Sunday, when voting is closed across the 28 member states of the European Union. Britain and the Netherlands are the first two countries to start the European Parliament elections this year. 35 minutes past the hour, and time for a check of what's making the front pages of Chinese newspapers this morning. We begin with Beijing Times, the headline, Beijing police set up professional anti-terrorism squad. What the goal is here is to have emergency personnel in downtown areas able to handle or respond to situations rather within a minute. That'll involve about 150 patrol cars on the streets. Authorities will also take more precautions in the anti-terrorism fight. Beijing Morning Post, China to start security vetting of IT products. This will affect cybersecurity vetting of major IT products and services used by national security and public interests in the city. The vetting is aimed at preventing suppliers from taking advantage of their products to illegally control, disrupt, or shut down client systems, or to gather, store, process, or use client information, as according to the statement from the office. In Beijing news, Beijing to connect subway lines to Hebei. Officials from the capital made that announcement on Thursday. Beijing subways extending to the neighboring province. Officials did not reveal which cities in Hebei will connect with the capital, but according to media reports, Dongshaoyun Station, which is a stop on Beijing's Line 6, has been built with the ability to extend eastward. Beijing Youth Daily. Beijing Municipal Congress suggests continuing the eating ban on the subway. That suggestion was made on Thursday. The clause that bans eating in Beijing subways has been cancelled in the draft that was delivered to the Congress. The Environmental Commission of the Congress frowned upon the idea of the eating ban. In Shanghai Daily, 3 men held after a bomb hoax aboard 2 flights. 3 passengers were detained yesterday after sparking the threat. The first 2 flights to make emergency landings. One of the flights was en route from Shanghai to Urumqi, capital of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. A man passed a note to the flight crew that said that he and his 2 friends had plans to blow up the aircraft. Police said inspections were carried out of all the passengers and the luggage on the flights. No hazardous materials were found, and the flights were later allowed to continue on their journeys. Global Times now, 3 new H7N9 cases have been identified. Health authorities in East China's Anhui province on Thursday reported that 3 more people are in critical condition with the H7N9 strain of bird flu. A 40-year-old in Taihu County, another man in La'anshan are suffering from the deadly avian flu virus. According to provincial health authorities, the virus causes acute and often lethal respiratory failure. The country has reported more than 200 human H7N9 cases so far this year. Time to go a bit deeper into the papers, and we have Alexander O'Front in the studio.
Hello there. So first up from the Shanghai Daily, bad news for you, Shane. You have to maybe cut down on a few of your friends as WeChat users face a limit on the number of contacts in the bid to tackle advertisement spamming and fraud on smartphone social networking app. But most users need not worry because the limit to the contacts is at 5,000 friends, officials with WeChat own attendance to Shanghai yesterday.
Well, yeah, I don't think I quite have 5,000 friends, so I don't think this will affect me too much.
499?
Yeah, I'm about there, yeah. Of course. And, yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way of dealing with it. I mean, it seems kind of odd still. I mean, for a person like me, I mean, I have, my contacts, and I'm not getting spammed, so I don't get it.
Well, I think it's more, nipping this in the bud. A statement from Tencent said, "We'll punish those accounts that send out large numbers of spam links or harass users according to relevant regulations of internet content and our community code of conduct." WeChat, of course, has 400 million active users at the moment.
Well, I mean, I guess a simpler solution is like don't follow these corporate groups that send out all the spam mail.
Indeed. Next up is an environmental story from Xinhua. It's the Qinghai Tibet Plateau glaciers shrink 15% in 30 years. Southwest China's Qinghai Tibet Plateau, the major source of the country's largest rivers, has seen its glaciers shrink rapidly over the last 30 years, the National Research Institute revealed Wednesday. According to the Institute of Tibetan Plateau Research of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, glaciers on the plateaus and surrounding areas have shrunk by 15% from 53,000 to 45,000 square kilometers over the past 3 decades. As the highest place in the world's mid-latitude regions, the plateau is more likely to be affected by global warming.
Yeah, these stories are increasingly alarming. I mean, I just read something, I think, earlier in the week from my home province, British Columbia, Canada, that a lot of glaciers there will be gone by the year 2030, and probably all of them by the end of the century. And there's enough water in those glaciers alone to raise sea levels by upwards of 30 centimeters or something like that.
Yeah, and still, people don't seem to be doing that much about it. I mean, we've been talking about this since the early 90s, at least, in major forms, and even before. But then, what was the results? What are people actually doing about it?
Well, so much is being done, but I mean, it's such a slow process, right? I mean, you can't just have everyone put
on progress on this thing.
Yeah, right, yeah. All right, it's 41 past, so we're turning to the special reports feature here. The National Center for the Performing Arts has invited world-renowned musicians to perform publicly in the busiest areas in Beijing. It's part of a campaign to promote classical music to the general public, and CRI's Chur Guang takes us to have a listen.
The Royal British a cappella vocal ensemble, the King Singers, is singing the Song of the Traveling Sun, or Yu Zhi, an ancient Chinese poem, in the St. Joseph's Church on Wangfujing Street. This is one of the many public performances of the May Music Festival hosted by the National Center for the Performing Arts. Chris is the tenor in the group. He tells the story of the group's name.
The group was initially founded from King's College at Cambridge University in 1968, and their singers were all from King's Cambridge, so it was an obvious name, King's Singers. Now we're from all over the place. We've even got one guy from New Zealand, but we're very, very proud of our history at King's College, Cambridge, and that's why, of course, we took the name.
When founded, the King's Singers was formed by 6 choral scholars. The group has always consisted of 6 singers in total, with their membership changing over the years. There have been 23 members who have joined the group since it was founded, and the group has received many awards, including 2 Emmys. Though there are just 6 singers, the audience could hear the sounds of a chorus with dozens of singers plus an orchestra. There are also 2 sopranos in the choir, both of whom use a special singing method to make their male voices as soft as a female to reach the highest vocal range, the so-called voice of the Holy Spirit. Earlier that morning, the NCPA brought the Leipzig Quartet from Germany to perform in Xihhe Hospital, one of the most renowned and busiest hospitals throughout the country. Qin Mengyuan is a doctor at Xihhe Hospital. Here is the main street of our hospital. The hospital often organizes some activities to enrich the lives of the medical staff and the patients. I'm so happy that the NCPA invited the famous German Leipzig Quartet to perform here. They're really good. The audience consists of doctors, nurses, and the patients. The classical music is very helpful for both the patients to recover and medical staff to relax. Let the music flow into the city is the philosophy of the NCPA. For the May Music Festival, they can join us in presenting classical music at the Forbidden City, as well as schools, hospitals, residential communities, museums, and shopping malls to promote classical music to the public.
CRI's Hui Guang reporting. It's now 44 past the hour.
Hello, I'm Dr. Nicholas from X-Men Days of Future Past. Now listen to the Beijing Hours. See you in a minute.
Talking about the X-Men movie in just a few minutes. It's on screens today. Now, first of all, of course, sports. We continue following Luis Suarez's injury. The striker from Uruguay had an operation on his injured knee yesterday, and the operation's been called very successful. Uruguay's Football Association says Suarez might be ready to play in the World Cup, which is only 20 days away. Estimates on his recovery range from 15 days to a minimum of 4 weeks, with Uruguay's Group G opener on the 14th of June. Suarez has been in superb form this past season, with English Premier League side Liverpool finishing as the season's leading scorer at 31 goals. And that feat was achieved despite the fact that he missed the opening 5 matches because he was suspended. He also won the Professional Footballers Association and Football Writers Association Player of the Year awards this season. Former Uruguay international Gus Poyet says it'll be really bad for the country's chances if Suarez does not recover in time.
Well, I think not having Luis Suarez at this moment in time on a team, national team is a team as well. It will be massive to have him because of the quality, the difference that he makes. Like I always say, when you have a player like him, if you are organized and work together, he will make the difference.
Well, Suarez helped this country to the 4th place finish at the last World Cup that was held in South Africa 4 years ago. Next month in Brazil, Uruguay faces stiff competition in a pool with Costa Rica, England, and cover champions Italy. Over here in the Chinese Super League, Shandong Luneng is now back on top of the table after winning on the road last night, 3-1 over Fuli. Luneng went into the match having not won a match in its last 4 outings. But Liu Binbin scored twice to hand Fuli its first loss on home pitch. Situation at the top of the table remains fluid, though, as Luneng is only a point clear of Fuli, which is sitting in 4th place with 22 points. Now, from the Women's Asian Cup semi-final, World Cup champions Japan knocked China out with an extra-time winner last night. The two sides were level at 1-0 after regulation, but a last-minute goal in the extra frame sent the Japanese to the tournament final. The Chinese women didn't leave the tournament empty-handed. They did manage to secure a ticket to next year's Canada World Cup after finishing as the runners-up in their group. In tennis, Argentina's Federico Del Bonis has won a hard-fought third-set tiebreak to move past John Isner in the quarters at the Nice Open. Del Bonis seeded 7th, won the first set, but then he lost the second, before recording a 6-4, 5-7, 7-6 victory over Isner. Del Bonis will next meet 4th seed Gilles Simon in the semifinal. That'll happen later today. Frenchman Simon dispatched Argentine Carlos Munoz in only 85 minutes in their quarterfinal matchup. And the other quarterfinal, Russia's Dmitry Tursunov was defeated by Latvian Ernest Stolbis 6-3, 3-6, 7-6, with another close tiebreak in the final set. And this Open is a tune-up for the French Open. That gets underway this weekend. In Formula One, Ferrari's Fernando Alonso beat Lewis Hamilton in the second practice at the Monaco Grand Prix. The Spaniard beat Hamilton by just 0.4 seconds in a frantic final. 10 minutes of dry running after heavy rain disrupted the session. It was the first time Alonso's broken Mercedes domination on the season's practice sessions. He was 4th in the first session behind the Mercedes drivers of Hamilton and Nico Rosberg and Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo. The Mercedes duo looks determined to continue their domination after winning 5 races so far this season. Before the German driver Rosberg, the Monaco circuit will be particularly motivating, as this is actually where he grew up.
Well, for me personally, it was a very, very special experience because it's my home, it's where I've grown up. And my whole life has been centered around Monaco, and so to win here, that was great. And not only that, but also it's the race to win. It's the most challenging race to win, and the most prestigious race to win. So really, that was awesome.
And the final race in Monaco is on Saturday. 49 minutes past the hour for the day's entertainment fix. Alexander Ocott joins us on the desk once again.
Hello there.
Dr. How, I'm Hugh Jackman. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. My new film, X-Men Days of Future Past, will hit Chinese screens soon. We'll see you there in theaters. I was sent here for you from the future, 50 years from now.
So, as you hinted to earlier, the new X-Men film is released in China today. Days of Future Past tells the story of out-of-control robots designed to take on the mutants to soon turn on all of mankind, unable to combat them in the present. The X-Men find a way of sending Wolverine 50 years into the past to unite the X-Men in 2 time zones in fighting their common enemy.
Sounds like they've kind of drawn a bit of a flat line out of the Terminator franchise, the Rise of the Machines kind of thing,
Yeah. I mean, all this comes from the old comic book series from Marvel.
Yeah.
So that, they're following it. There's definitely a way of combining the new, younger versions of the characters and the older ones in one package, and then I think they're going to carry on with the younger versions in that run of the sequel. Obviously, I personally am quite dismissive of a lot of this comic book stuff. I think there's far too much of it now. But I do like the X-Men series, and I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, there are a couple of stronger franchises. The X-Men franchise, I think, is one of them. The Avengers, I like that movie a lot, too. I've not seen, all the movies right of that franchise, but the Avengers movie that came out, last summer, that was great, I thought.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Patrick Stewart as well, so I look forward to this. Next up, Hollywood actor Ryan Gosling has just premiered his first film at the Cannes Film Festival. That's actually Matt Smith of Doctor Who fame playing a bully in the film. The movie Lost River, which the 33-year-old also wrote, is one of 19 to compete in the Uncertain Regard category for emerging directors. Film tells the story of a young man named Bones, who, along with his mother and little brother, are practically the only family left that hasn't cleared out of a small community, visibly hit by tough times. When their home is scheduled for demolition due to a mortgage debt, Bones strips abandoned houses for copper wiring to sell, and his mother starts working at an underground fetish club. Far from labouring over his debut effort, Gosling said this film had a life of its own.
It was something that immediately, once I sort of verbalized it, it had momentum. It was something that was, I became an employee of it. It was sort of moving past the people were working on it. Suddenly there were actors, and we're shooting, we're editing, now we're here. I still feel like I'm trying to catch up.
Ron Walker, the Hollywood heartthrob, has twice collaborated with Nicholas Winding Refn in Drive and Only God Forgives, and that Danish director is on this year's jury, so it'll be interesting to see what he'll make of it.
Yeah. Conflict of interest there, I think. But
well, I don't think it will be too much, but I absolutely love those two films. The cinematography is absolutely amazing, so hopefully Gosling has learned a thing or two. Although the reviews have not been all that complimentary. The Telegraph put the letters CR on the front of Apocalypse, something quite very unmentionable. But we'll have to see. Next up, Steven Spielberg is set to team up with the Coen brothers in the making of a Cold War thriller starring Tom Hanks. What a lineup that is. The plot will revolve around the true story of James Donovan, a U.S. lawyer recruited to help the CIA negotiate the release of a pirate shot down over Russia in 1960. It is the first time that all 4 men, who have 10 Oscars between them, have all worked together. However, Hanks has worked with the Coen brothers before in the 2004 remake of The Lady Killers, although less said about that the better, perhaps. And with Spielberg in The Terminal, Saving Private Ryan, and Catch Me If You Can, well, Spielberg and John and Ethan Coen have worked together on True Grit.
Could be a very, very interesting project. I mean, it's definitely a subject matter that seems to make a comeback, I think, in Cold War stuff.
Yeah. And an update on the situation with Sir Paul McCartney. It's reported the former Beatle has been taken to hospital in Tokyo with a worsening viral infection, according to Japanese media, but had already cancelled his Japanese out there tour due to the infection, and his show in Seoul, South Korea, has already been called off. The subsequent gigs in the United States remain on for now, which should remain to be seen. McCartney fell ill after arriving in Japan last week, and doctors reportedly ordered him to complete rest.
That's wishes, and I hope he gets well soon. It's 53 past, and that's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour. Quick recap of the headlines here. 41 confirmed deaths following yesterday's terror attack in Xinjiang. Chinese authorities have vowed to step up efforts against domestic militants. On behalf of the Beijing Hour staffers, Shane Bigham in Beijing, hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour to open a window to the world together.
You're listening to CRI News Plus Radio. Email us at newsplus@cri.com. Or get in touch with us the old-fashioned way. And write to us. Our address is English Service, China International, Beijing, China. Postal code 10040. CRI News Plus Radio. Where what you say matters. Gain a new perspective by visiting CRI'sEnglish.com. Start for everything you've ever wanted to know about China. We want up-to-date analysis of news and reports, live video, and not laugh along the way. Feature options bring you live coverage of Congress, blog lines at CRI'sEnglish.com, and get to know the Middle Kingdom. CRI'sEnglish.com. You're listening to CRI News Plus Radio. Email us at newsplus@cri.com.cn. Or get in touch with us the old-fashioned way. Pick up a pen and write to us. Our address is English Service, China Radio International, Beijing, China. Postal code 10040.